Broadcasting from Ireland, featuring interviews with some of the biggest names in magic. Welcome to the Deceive Reality Podcast with your hosts, David Peace and Steve Spade.
And we're back. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Deceive Reality Podcast. My name is David Peace. I'm joined again by Steve Spade. Steve, how are you doing?
Good.
Yeah. And we're here with Michael O'Brien. Michael, how are you doing? Cheers.
I'm well,
everyone.
thank you. I noticed right at the beginning of your thing, it said some of the greatest magicians from all over the world. So I don't know what you have me doing here on broadcast, but I'm happy to be here anyway.
It's St. Patrick's Day. Who better to get on than Michael O'Brien? And we've some whiskey, you've got some Guinness, so it's a pretty good day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. This is getting released. We're recording this a little early, but it all works. We have our green on. We're ready for St. Patrick's Day. Ready to kick it off. So Michael, how are you doing? And thanks again for coming on the show.
I'm well, thank you so much. Like I said, kind of before we started getting on here, just taking it easy today, taking it easy tomorrow. Going to be spending some time with the family and everything. So just trying to live one day at a time and get through all the craziness that's going on in the world right now. So
yeah, absolutely. Family is so important right now. Just be with your loved ones and enjoy. Obviously, just enjoy Paddy's Day. If you don't have to work it, just enjoy it. It's our Christmas, so enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people as well, just want to give a shout out at the beginning for people. If you haven't heard already, there is a butterfly cards for Ukraine that you can get in Penguin Magic, where the proceeds, if you buy the cards at $25, you buy them, the proceeds go to charities to help Ukraine. So that's definitely a good idea. If you have some spare money, it's good. I've bought them as well, so it's a cool thing. So if you want to do
and the quality of those cards are phenomenal. I had one of the first ones that came out ages back, and they're amazing cards. So yeah, it's a win-win all around.
Absolutely. So definitely check that out. So Michael, I think we should start at the beginning. A lot of people see you doing YouTube, seeing you on Penn Tell Foolish and stuff. But how did this all really kick off for you, where you got into this weird magical world?
So it's a super long story. I'll try to make a long story as short as possible. But
we've got an hour. Go for it.
Okay, good. Well, I'm gonna need at least 2 just to start out.
We'll cut halfway through when you first find your deck of cards. We'll cut there, and then in part 2 we'll go on. We'll carry on.
Yeah. So essentially, when I was really young, a friend of mine that lived on the same street, his mom actually got him a magic set. It was is it Richard Anderson? I believe, or no, I forget his name. Something Anderson, Larry Anderson, the Jaw Droppers series. You know which one I'm talking about? It was a 5 VHS set.
Okay.
It came with like a flipper coin or like a folding coin and like a Svengali deck and things like this. So it was a little magic set. And him and I used to sit in his room and come up with our own, little shows, and we would do shows for the friends and family and things like this. Well, as years go on, we both kind of grew out of it. We went on into different things. I started getting really into music. I was on the wrestling team in school and all these things, and he went off and kind of did his own thing. And then my senior year in high school, I met a magician on the street on Hollywood Boulevard, just a block away from the Magic Castle. And he was busking. He was doing magic for money on the street. And this is my first time really interacting with an actual magician. Like, I've seen the self-working tricks, the Svengali decks, the tricks with the little brass cap where you put the coins and then it changes into other coins. But I'd never seen real sleight of hand before. So I was intrigued. I told my friends, hey, let's go watch the magician, right? So he's doing his thing. And then afterwards, I asked him, I said, that's really cool. I used to be into magic when I was younger, but I'd never seen anything like this. How do you learn how to do something like this? So he said, here, I'll tell you what. You come stand over here. I'm going to draw in another crowd. You'll be behind me, and you can kind of see everything that I'm doing. So he gathered another group of like 5 or 6 people. He did his thing. And while he's doing it, I'm behind him. So he's kind of flashing the moves to me. Mm-hmm. So the routine that he did was a card to pocket thing. And what he did was he'd like palm the card. He would like have it like this. I could see it. He'd like put it behind his back and all of these things. So I got to see everything. And in my head, I'm thinking like, how are these people not catching this? Like, I can see like exactly what he's doing. And then I remembered, oh yeah, 2 minutes ago I was standing on that side watching it and I didn't see anything either. So I was just so fascinated by this, so intrigued by this. He made some recommendations to me of books that I should check out. He said, yeah, go to the library, pick up the Royal Road to Card Magic to get started. Start learning some basic sleight of hands, how to control cards, how to shuffle cards, things like this. And to this day, the card to pocket routine is one of my favorite things to perform. And it's because it's one of the first pieces of magic that I really wanted to learn, because that was the one that he showed me that got me into wanting to learn magic. So fast forward now to that summer, I needed a job because I was living with a friend at the time. And the deal was you could stay here until you graduate. You got to get out of here. So I needed somewhere to live. I needed a job. So I went to Disneyland with a friend, and they had this little kiosk right there. It was a Houdini's Magic Shop kiosk. And there was a little "we're hiring" sign. So I was like, what the heck, right? I'll go ahead and put in a thing. I didn't expect them to hire me, but I put in a little thing, and they called me the next day. And they're, are you a magician? Do you know anything about magic? Can you demonstrate any of the things in the store? And I said, yeah, I know a little bit about magic. So they had me come in, and they auditioned me essentially. Like, here's a Svengali deck, perform that for me and do a little pitch like you're trying to sell it to me, right? So I did that, and the D lights, like little lights going through my ears, all these things. And they were like, all right, when do you want to start? And I was like, you can start me now if you want.
Hired.
They pretty much hired me right there on the spot. So that was my first time being exposed to actually performing magic to real people that I didn't know, not my family and my friends that I grew up with or went to school with. So from there, it just started snowballed. I did that for about a year. Then I joined the Magic Castle as a junior in 2009. And then I started doing my first professional work where I actually got paid to go out and do shows 2010. So again, like this snowballing. Fast forward to, was it like a year or so ago now? Actually, it was about 2 years ago. I sent in an audition for Fool Us. They didn't accept it. They were like, great stuff, but no thank you. And I was like, all right, well, it is what it is, I guess. So me and a really good friend of mine, Matthew Garrett, who I'm sure you've heard about, he created this trick called Ninja Plus with like a wedding ring. You link it onto the ring, and you can pass that out. You can check everything. And we went back and forth. The original plan was actually to have us both audition, and we did. We both auditioned together on the show. Now, this last season, the problem is that there was, obviously because of COVID, they weren't having any of the international acts in. So he wasn't able to come along, and they were like, we want this to be done in person. We don't want this to be a Zoom performance. So Matthew told me, you know what? This might be the last chance. Who knows if they're going to renew for another season or not? I would love for you to do this. And so he gave me his blessing, and he was there through the whole process. He was there behind the scenes, like, you should do this, you should do that. It was his recommendation to do the forehead link with Pen's ring on Teller's forehead, which ended up being the one bit that everyone was talking about, which is ironic because the whole point of the routine is that I'm linking the ring and passing it out using this special gimmick that Matthew Garrett created. And that bit almost no one remembers. Everyone just remembers the thing on the forehead, right?
Yeah.
So Fool Us happens, and now I'm getting all of these like phone calls from people. Oh, you should come over and do this. You should do this. You should do this. And the issue is right now is that we are like in the middle of the pandemic, so it's just so hard to even. I got to travel. I went to Blackpool a couple weeks back, and that's probably the extent to the international travel that I'm going to have at least for this year. But like I said, it's been great. Matthew Garrett has been great. He's been a wonderful mentor and a great friend for me. And just my career is kind of, like I said, it's just kind of snowballed. The YouTube channel I started 2014, something like that.
Yeah.
Uploading videos here and there. The idea was really just to have a channel so I could put my performance videos and things like this. So when I'm trying to do gigs, I have somewhere to send people, you want to watch my videos, come check this out.
Yeah.
And over time, I thought, like, I'm looking online. I can't really find any videos for magicians about how to be a magician. There's plenty of tutorial channels on YouTube, but no channels that really teach you how to be a magician, how to be a professional magician, things like this. So I just started thinking, let me just post a couple videos, see how they do, whatever, just things that I've discovered along my journey of trying to become a professional magician. And that became, over time, the main focus of my channel, is the advice for magicians videos. And then the reviews and the performances kind of became the secondary bit. So yeah, it's been great.
It's great. I mean, the Penn and Teller, the performance is so unique. I mean, it really does stand out. I mean, I watched it a few times, and it's a really strong performance. I mean, that's one of those performances where it can't just be. It doesn't have to be just for Penn and Teller food. You could do that as your set. I mean, I'm sure you have or variations of it.
Yeah. The Ninja Plus routine is a staple part of my act. So what you saw on Fool Us was actually about half of the routine. The routine's like a 6-7 minute long routine. Mm-hmm. And I mean, all of the material is Matthew Garrett's, which is kind of a double-edged sword for me, because I want to be remembered for the things that I have contributed to the community. But this routine is so strong. Everyone relates it back to me, like, oh, Michael O'Brien is like so good with the rings. It makes me feel good to hear that. At the same time, it's like, yeah, but it's not really any of my ideas. It's all Matthew Garrett's work. I just fell in love with the routine. I just performed it to death. Yeah. And I do an okay job performing. If you want to see it, though, watch Matthew perform it. Yeah. It is amazing. At Blackpool, he invited me to his stand, and I was just there for the weekend helping him pitch rings. I was just there on the stand pitching rings and watching him do it. Like, there's a couple moments where I forgot that I was working the stand. I'm just like, just watching him do it. So he's insane. If you haven't seen any of Matthew's stuff, I recommend you check him out. But yeah, it's been crazy. And the Foolish performance was so, it was the whole experience was so wonderful. The whole cast and crew and everyone was so wonderful. Because of lockdown, I didn't get to meet and hang out really with them or anything like that. A lot of people ask me, did you get to sit down with Penn and Teller and have a beer or any of that stuff? And because of COVID, everything was very strict. Like, even with Allison, they were like, there's Allison's ex, there's your ex. You stand on your ex, she stands on hers. You don't go any closer to her, right? Because they didn't want her getting sick or whatever. I'm guessing she had like a contractual thing or whatever. But
yeah, it's so strict. Anything on a movie set or a TV set over the last 2 years has been nearly impossible. But I mean, with those guidelines, it does work. But they are strict.
Was there any question then about doing the forehead trick with like socially distancing and all that sort of stuff? Was there anything about where they're like, don't put the ring on the forehead or anything like that?
Sorry, say that one more time.
I was just wondering, was there anything about like, don't put the ring on the forehead and like, don't do the linking ring on the forehead because of COVID? Was there any sort of pushback on that?
So the way the audition process went along was I came up with the way that I wanted to do it. Matthew Garrett, like I said, mentored me on this. He was like, you should do this, 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 and this. And we sent in an audition. And they were like, we like this bit, we like this bit, we don't like this. Take this out, do this instead, right? So I sent in another video and another video. I sent in 3 actual videos after the initial audition. And then we jumped on an actual live, kind of like how we are right now, with all of the producers, all of the stage crew, like the main stage heads were there. Michael Close was the magician consultant for the show. He was there. And I ran my routine as it was meant to be performed on Penn and Teller. And this was like 2 weeks before I was meant to fly out. And even then they were like, okay, we want this change. We want this change. We want this change. Right. Yeah. And my biggest concern going into it was the forehead link. And they were actually totally on board with it. COVID wise, they didn't really like that. never even came up. Believe it.
You can't get Allison sick, but fuck, tell her he's grand.
Yeah. No, they were that honestly didn't even come up, which I thought was crazy. But the thing that concerned me the most was I asked them. I was like, "Is there any way for me to practice with Penn's ring, maybe even just the day of before I go out there?" And they were like, "That's a solid no." They didn't want Penn and Teller to know anything about any of the acts. The only thing that Penn knew was make sure you're wearing your rings today. That's it. That's all the producers told him. Make sure you have your rings on today. And so on the day when I'm there and Teller's looking up and Penn's ring is on his forehead, I'm just like very slowly going in, because the whole thing is the ring has to flip up a certain way for it to link onto the ring. If it were to flip to the side or flip back, it could fall on the floor. So what better way to end a magician's career than dropping Penn Jillette's ring, which, by the way, they cut this bit from the live broadcast, but in the actual performance, I look at Penn and I say, "That's a very beautiful ring that you have on your finger. You know, would it be okay if I borrow it for a second?" And Penn looks me dead in the eye and he says, "I'm going to give you this ring, but just understand, this was my father's ring. He gave this to me before he passed away, and it's very, very special to me." And I'm just like, why you tell me that? Why don't you tell me this is like just some thing that you found at a pawn shop or something? Why does it have to be so sentimental? So now I'm freaking out. I do the thing on the forehead and I see the ring linked on, and immediately just all the stress went away and I was just able to be myself for the rest of the routine. That was the one bit that I was stressed out about the most. So because there's no real way to rehearse for that, because I didn't have an opportunity. I mean, I had other rings, but I didn't have that one, and every ring is different. So, but
it's a tough one, because when you borrow someone's ring, it's like they're giving you a level of trust that you really need to like take care of it and stuff. And it's like, there's nothing worse than when you drop a spectator's ring or something like that. I've had it happen, and it's just like, oh, you just want to like curl up and like go away and like never perform again. But do you have any advice for people who are like looking at borrowing spectators' rings and like things to do just to ensure that like you don't break their ring?
First thing, carry insurance, because accidents will happen. You should carry insurance anyway, even if you're not planning on borrowing spectators' rings. You knock a glass of wine over on a spectator's $3,000 suit or whatever, you know, they're going to expect that you're going to pay for it. And if you don't have insurance, you're going to cover it out of your pocket. So that's my first bit of advice. My second bit of advice is just always ask, never assume. Oh, do me a favor, go ahead and take off your ring. Perfect. Like, try to avoid doing things like this. I would rather say, I noticed you're wearing a ring. Would you mind if I borrow it? I promise I'll be very careful and I'll give it right back to you. Wait for them to say yes. They take it off. They give it to you. You handle that like this is the most precious thing ever, right? Imagine that it's your ring that the most special person in the world gave you. And if anything were to happen to this ring, you'd be gutted. Just imagine that. When I'm doing the linking ring bits with it, if it has a stone, I turn it upside down so that I'm linking just on the band. I'm staying away from the stones. Even then, I inspect the ring first to make sure, as I'm patterning, you know, I'm looking at the ring, I'm checking it, making sure that it's okay. Because if I notice anything odd about it, maybe a stone is wiggling or something like that, I don't even really do much with it. Maybe I'll do like one of those and then like bring it back or something. But if a stone falls off, you could be held liable for that, even though it was maybe already kind of damaged anyway. So my word of advice for anyone that wants to do that is just be careful. If you're doing a ring flight, make sure that the clip on your ring flight is solid. It's not going to throw the ring across the room or anything like this. And practice so that you know what you're doing. It's one thing to have a coin and to do your coin vanish. And if you drop the coin, that's terrible, but not a big deal, I suppose. They just pick the coin up and carry on. If you do that with a spectator's ring, you're in trouble. So that's my advice on that one.
It's something I find that a lot of people don't talk about a lot is when you're doing like sleight of hand with a ring, especially like an engagement ring with a stone, even a classic palm, like diamonds are sharp. So like if you're really palming a ring deep, like because sometimes it might just stab you a little bit or scratch you a little bit because it's got a sharp stone, and you don't want to be like it's like drop the ring. So you want to like be comfortable with that. I always like the wedding bands for that. Then like if there's a stone, I'm like keep it. I'll try somebody else.
Yeah, a good rule of thumb is just stay away from stones. They just because you can like it's your trick, whatever you're going to perform. So you can spot. It's like stealing a watch. If you can't steal a certain type of watch, then don't steal a watch that suits or whatever. And you can do whatever trick you want to do. But yeah, no, I've heard so many horror stories about people dropping wedding rings on yachts and everything. It's just it's not worth it.
Yeah, don't do it next to a drain. If there's like an open gutter, walk away. Don't do magic there.
Yep.
Is there any kind of ring that won't work, Michael? Is there something that you'd stay away from completely?
Honestly, no. I don't think so. I mean, there has to be something out there. Obviously, a ring with a break in it. Like a ring that maybe doesn't go all the way around the finger.
That makes linking rings so much easier, though.
Yeah, that's true, right?
They brought the gimmick.
Not that I could think of. At least I haven't had any issues. The nice thing about, and actually, I'll talk about the Ninja Plus routine with you guys for a little bit, just so you could kind of see, because there's a few minds that went into it. There's a bit I used with the bottle opener as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was Tom Brooks' donation to the effect, and essentially the idea is, we're already linking other objects. Why not link something else too? And it's kind of an odd shaped thing because it's ring-like. It's got the little circle gap in it. You can link something through it.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting bit is it has a hole on this end and a hole on the other end as well. So the whole thing is you link it through one and then you melt it through the solid bit to the other side. And thinking about it, it blows people's minds because they see it went through like 3 solid inches of metal, when in reality it's the thin bit that it went through, like an eighth of an inch of metal. So using that same thing in mind, pretty much any ring, as long as it's solid and as long as the gap in the key ring can pass through it, it really is something that you can link on. Like Matthew Garrett links all sorts of things, those big old bangle bracelets and all sorts of stuff onto that ring. So
cool.
There's a lot you could do with it, but as far as running into problems with something I couldn't link on, I haven't. That's a good challenge, though. We'll see.
Something like Super Bowl ring or something heavy. I thought that probably make it easier.
No. Honestly, for me, the heavier the better, because then it's more sturdy. I had someone like my wife, for example. She's got tiny fingers, so her ring it's like you can't. If you drop it on the floor, good luck finding it. You can't even see it. And I've practiced with her ring before, and just holding it in your fingers. You can see my fingers. I don't have beefy fingers or anything, but they're big enough that like trying to pinch the part of the ring, like trying to link it through there, So maybe a tiny light little ring might be more difficult, but no, a bigger, heavier ring is better for me.
Yeah, even if you're doing like a ring and string routine, a heavier ring is better, just for momentum and just gravity will work with it.
Mm-hmm. Do an ear spreader. So someone who's got like the hole in their ear with the big ring, link into one of them, and that would be.
Oh yeah, with the gauges.
Yeah.
When I was in Ohio for the Penguin Live, there was a guy there, an online friend of mine. We hadn't met in person yet, but a friend of mine, and he has a septum piercing, and he was like, "It will be the highlight of my trip if you link a ring through my septum piercing." So I actually I'll send you guys a picture of that, me linking the ring through his nose.
There was that clip on Paul Zenon's TV special before where he attached 2 people's earrings with a ring and then just walked away.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's good.
With your Foolish performance as well, and like a lot of the stuff you do, like you celebrate your Irish heritage quite a lot in what you're doing. Has that always been part of like your character quotes performing, or is that something that's developed over time?
That's a great question. So I've actually, this is probably the thing that I get asked the most. To be honest with you, the magic almost kind of comes second in my Foolish bit. I've had nothing but love and a little bit of pushback. Now,
He's not really Irish. It's
let
bullshit.
me
Get him
get
off the
this,
show. Get him-
I open my mouth and they're like, where's his bloody accent? This is probably Irish, right? And so for me, and I think this is a very American thing anyway, and I think a lot of Americans get a lot of flack, but a lot of Americans are very proud of where their ancestors came from, because America doesn't really have a culture unless you're Native American or Mexican. America doesn't really have a native culture because it's a land of colonizers, right? So
it's got a young history, yeah.
Exactly. So usually when you ask someone where you're from in America, they're going to tell you where their ancestors came from. So like, oh, like, where are you from? Oh, I'm Japanese. Well, you were born in Japan? Well, no, but I'm Japanese, right? Or, well, where are you from? Oh, I'm German. You were born in Germany? No, but like my ancestors are from Germany, right? So am I native blood Irish? Obviously not. I was born here, born and bred in the United States of America. I've never lived anywhere else outside of this country. But I have a lot of family. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of roots that were kind of instilled in me, passed down from my father. Like they're all like Notre Dame's fans, and I grew up Catholic, and you know, like I'm wearing, I don't know if you could see or not, I have my Claddagh ring on.
Yeah.
Right. So it's definitely baked into my DNA. It's something that's been a part of me growing up my whole life. Like my dad, in the story in the beginning, I talk about the hat and how it's like a family heirloom, and a lot of people have given me even flack for that. They're like, that hat was definitely not passed down from generation to generation, and I'm like, obviously not this one. Like I bought this one, right? This is like my everyday hat. But my granddad passed his cap down to him, and he passed his cap down to me, and so on. And I do actually have one. It's falling apart because it's so old now at this point. But it is something that I treasure, and I have my grand's shillelagh and you know, things like this. So it's definitely something that's been baked into my DNA growing up. Now I exaggerated it a little bit for the sake of my character. I use like the three-leaf clover and the green and the white and the orange color schemes, like in my branding and things like this. And so I can understand where people are coming from when they maybe are a little bit irritated about it. Like, you're not really Irish, you're American, whatever. Which is also kind of interesting.
Are those people on the Magic Cafe? Because if they are, they can go fuck themselves.
That's the thing, and that's the amazing bit too. It's that I have not had any issues from any Irish people. Like I have not had a single Irish people. Everyone is like, bro, you do you. Like we're so happy that you're so proud of where you come from, right?
Yeah.
I had a
you've got a better hat than Dave, so like you're clearly Irish.
This is my everyday hat as well. Like,
that is your everyday hat, yeah.
It's my
No,
everyday
but
hat.
this is
He just doesn't get weird looks on Paddy's Day.
Yeah, this is something that comes up a lot. And like I said, it's also kind of interesting. It's St. Paddy's Day. You have the St. Paddy's Day special in Ireland, and you got an American chap here on the broadcast of you guys doing this today. So I thought that it's nothing but love. If anything, the hate has been from other Americans.
I always find it weird with the Americans and the Irish thing, because like Americans go more crazy for St. Patrick's Day than we do. We don't dye our rivers green. They're probably green naturally just from like chemical waste, but we don't dye them or anything like that. It's just pollution. And then like I always used to say, what I found interesting when I lived in America was that Americans are the most patriotic people about being American until they meet someone who's not American, and then they're that too. So it's always first as well. It's never like American Irish, it's Irish American or Italian American and stuff. It's like it is a thing of loving the culture of like where your family comes from and things. Because there is a joke in Ireland where Americans come over and it's like, oh yeah, I'm Irish too. My great grandfather's dog's cousin was Irish. You're like, oh yeah, sure. And it's there's loads of jokes about if Americans come into Ireland, make sure you wear green. We love that, and like make sure you tell us the language we're speaking. It's like all the stories. I did have a situation before where I was working in a petrol station or like a gas station, and an American couple were there, and they were going to Blarney Castle, which is a huge tourist destination in Cork, where I'm from,
Mhm.
and they were walking into the garage being like, "This is amazing. They have electricity everywhere." And this was like 2008. So I was just like, "Wow."
Can you
That's
believe they have
impressive.
toilets and
Yeah.
everything? It was insane.
My uncle married an American, and when my grandparents went over to visit, her like family were showing my grandparents how to use the remote control for the TV in case we didn't have it and stuff. It's just like,
But it's like funny we were saying like the parade is bigger in America, and now like the Irish, even though it's like our tradition or whatever, we took the idea of the parade from the Americans, and it wasn't until 1904 that there was an Irish parade, but it was only because America had been doing Irish parades in New York since like 1745 or something. The Irish immigrants and whatever over there. So like it's crazy like the way it's our festival, but we took all the good bits from the Americans and switched it back.
Well,
all we had was drinking, and then we're like, no, let's have floats and sweets, and and make a whole thing of it.
We do play up the stereotypes as well whenever we're around Americans, so I do think we are to blame. It's like, anytime
Yeah,
you
I can imagine.
we drink all the time. Yeah, I'm never sober, to be honest. And then have a few fights and go home, It's a good day.
No, I love it. I love it. Like I said, and even like going back to St. Paddy's Day, a lot of people from Ireland, they asked me, how's the Guinness in America? And it's like, we have our own plants here. I don't think a lot of people realize, like, we have our own plants here. I don't think we import too much of the Guinness even anymore. They've opened a new brewery. Was it in New York or New Hampshire? I'm trying to remember. They just opened a new one recently. I saw on their feed they posted about it. I do need to have a proper pint though in Dublin. So next time I'm out.
Even outside of Dublin, people say it's not a real pint of Guinness unless it's like from the Liffey water. In Dublin, it's just better. So
all the COVID vaccines aren't going to help you drinking that shit though. 100%.
Because it is the thing is like I'm like one of the weird Irish people who doesn't drink Guinness and doesn't like potatoes. So it's like, what am I meant to do?
That's the interesting thing. I know there are a lot of people. I have a lot of friends. Again, that are Irish, and they're like, I don't drink. And you just think like, I've grown up my whole life knowing that that's all Irish people do is have whiskey and pints of Guinness. Like, what do you mean you don't drink? And it's like, oh yeah, you forget people are people and everyone has their own tastes. It's like, when I was in England, seeing American culture from England's perspective was very eye-opening for me. Like, apparently all Americans are very obsessed with Elvis Presley. I just learned about this.
Oh, yeah.
Elvis Presley, apparently we all have Elvis posters and memorabilia in our homes, right? And
it's Elvis and Jesus. That's America.
And we all eat apple pie. Like, if you don't eat apple pie, you are not American. That's just how it goes here in America, right? So now I get it. It makes sense. It's been very interesting for me to say the least. But I'm very, very happy to have made such wonderful friends from all over the world, even not just magicians in general.
Culturally wise, I mean, like, a lot of those stereotypes, they do work for people. Like Macklemore, like, he's always gone on about being Irish and all that kind of stuff. And then even like when Colin Farrell, the actor, and Richard Harris years ago, like, came to Hollywood to be big stars, they played up the Hellraiser Irish. We curse too much, we drink too much, we fight too much. But it suits it. People like that kind of mad kind of kind of that kind of McGregor kind of attitude, I suppose, of just that no holds bar. Don't really take a lot of shit from anyone kind of a thing. And I think people are always kind of like warm to that because they're like, the mad Irish, it is what it is. Because if you can kind of fight it and be like, no, we're different now and this, that, and the other. But I lived in Boston for a while. And there's no point explaining to them that it's not like that. No matter what you say, you could go over and say that you're a brain surgeon. They'd be still like, you must be pissed all the time. Like they don't see it past the stereotypes.
Yeah. but it helps us too. It's good.
Yeah,
We're a small little
it is what it
country
is.
that is like known worldwide, and our celebration St. Patrick's Day is held in like every
Yeah.
country I think in the world. Pretty
Yeah.
much at this stage. It's just,
I blame Walt Disney, man. What Darby O'Gill and Little People. He fucked it for everyone, 100%. Because that's all they saw. Like in America, that's what they saw, and they're like, "That's Ireland. We'll go to Ireland." Sean Connery will be walking around with jumpers on. It'd be great, you know.
Yeah. It's brilliant. And the Irish accent, as you could probably tell, me and Steve have very different accents. And once you go to Dublin, it's even more different. In Donegal, even more different.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that in America too. I mean, you go to California. I have the what's the technical term for my accent? There's a technical term for it. The San Fernando Valley accent or something. I don't know. And then you go to Texas and you have the Southern drawl, and you go to Alabama and they have their own version of that. And then you go to New York, as you knew living in Boston, people in Boston speak a certain way and stuff. My family all mostly lives back east in New Jersey, New York. So even in me, like my dad had a thick like New York accent. So even with me, you'll hear some things that I say and I slip accents in unintentionally.
Yeah.
I'll start talking like my dad sometimes. Like I'll just be having a conversation, be like, yeah, what are you talking about? Like I don't even know what you're talking about. And someone goes, what do you mean talking about? Talking? Where's that come from? And I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes it slips out, right? Like my New York accent will slip out. I'll get really upset, really angry, and I'll start yelling, right? And then like I sound just like my father when I start yelling. Like, my New York accent really starts coming out. So yeah, I can imagine just like that. There's different ways that different people speak all over the world, and even in their own country. One person at the south end, another person at the north end. I'm sure the accents are totally different.
Even in the city, it's like you go to the north side of one city and the south side of one city, and it's very different accents. I find it amazing. I heard something recently actually that it was like your landscape kind of defines your accent. So if you live in a hilly place, your accent goes up and down, and if you live in a flat place, your accent's more flat. Just like an interesting the study of it. So it's like something about the acoustics of your area, like dictates your accent, which is crazy. And with the YouTube thing you mentioned earlier as well, with doing YouTube, do you have any advice for someone who's like looking to get into YouTube or wants to do YouTube more, of how to like start off doing YouTube?
Yeah, definitely. Now I'll put a little caveat on everything I'm about to say. My channel hasn't exploded. I'm not like 100,000 millions of subscribers or anything, but I think that my channel is steadily growing. I'm getting about 5 or 6 subs a day, which is not terrible, right? And so the most important thing I think is understanding the algorithm, and that's very difficult to do because it's constantly changing. So if you want to grow your channel and you want to cast as wide a net out to as many people as you can, have as many people watching your channel as possible, because ultimately that's the goal, right? You want as many people as possible to be absorbing your content. You want to be consistent. You want to put out good content. And when I say good content, I don't mean it has to be like blockbuster video editing or anything like that. It could just be you sitting in a room with the camera. It doesn't matter, right? But people have to enjoy your content, right? And when I say consistent, I mean having like a good consistent schedule. Stick to that schedule. Even if you can only upload 1 video a month, upload that 1 video a month on the same day at the same time every month. Because the algorithm likes consistency. It likes to know that you are going to be reliable, that you're going to constantly be putting out content. Because at the end of the day, YouTube's whole goal is to bring users onto their platform so they can make money running ads and things. So when they see like, oh, Michael O'Brien is doing a good job of keeping users on the platform and we're running a lot of ads out to the people watching his videos, we're going to push his videos out more. And then that's when I show up in people's recommendation feed more often. So that's kind of the basic idea of the algorithm. Now, obviously, there's other things at play, but I recommend just going on YouTube and just searching how to grow my YouTube channel. And there are tons of advice videos out there, ones that are going to be better advice even than I'm giving you. But consistency, having fun content that people enjoy, And probably the third thing that's important is developing that fan base and not treating them like they're just, like comments on a message board. Like they're real people. If they comment saying, "Oh my God, I loved your video," or whatever, respond to them. "Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it," even if that's all you say. Because what that does is that develops a relationship between you and your followers, so that they feel like they know you. Like I one of the most surreal experiences for me was just recently going to Blackpool and having people coming up and being like, "Oh my God, you're Michael O'Brien. Like, can I talk to you for a minute? Like, I don't want to bother you. Do you have time?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, come here, sit down, grab a drink. Like, let's hang out. Like, I'm just me. Like, I'm not, I'm not a big deal."
Michael,
People feel that
they knew you had
connection.
Guinness. They knew you had Guinness. They were like, he's definitely got Guinness.
Oh, if in the Ruskin, you guys have been, you know what I'm talking about. In the Ruskin, I'll just get tapped on the shoulder, and then a drink will come in my face, and I'm like, "What's this?" And they're just like, and they just like walk away. Like, all right, I'll take it. So, and the reason that people I think feel that way is because we've developed a bond, and there was a couple times where like, "Hey, I'm so and so," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I know you. You like comment on all my videos," and we chat back and forth and stuff like this. So developing a close relationship with your followers is very important. Even if you have 5 followers, develop a close relationship with those 5 followers. I would rather have 5 followers that watch all my videos. They're constantly talking to me about it. They're absorbing my content. We're having a back and forth than 1,000 followers that don't watch any of my videos and don't ever communicate with me,
Definitely.
Absolutely. I think that's important because even I found even like for us, we were inconsistent at the beginning with the podcast, and like we'd do it maybe on a Thursday, maybe on a Friday. We'd see how we're feeling, and doing it. And now with like we've got like a proper schedule with reviews and clips and that sort of stuff. And our subscriber count last month has jumped by 50, and it's like, what the hell? This is mad. It's like we doubled in like what we took 2 years to get. We doubled in a few weeks, which is like the consistency works because even I've seen it coming up in like other people's feeds and stuff now with suggestions and stuff where it's like, oh wow, it actually consistency I think is huge for the YouTube channel and stuff. And we're doing the magic reviews as well. What do you think is the best trick that you've reviewed? Is there any trick that like you were reviewing and you were just like, yeah, this is like crazy?
Best trick? That's a good question. I've done a lot of good reviews on a lot of good products. Things that I really enjoy sometimes are things that people don't like at all. And vice versa. I'll see something, I'm like, "Oh, that was kind of cool, I suppose," and everyone's like, "What do you mean that was kind of cool? That's trick of the year," or whatever, So probably the most interesting thing for me that I reviewed was Switchboard. I don't know if you've seen this. It's essentially it's a little circuit board with like little LED light bulbs on it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know that one.
And you, for the viewers or listeners who don't know what I'm talking about, essentially it's a little circuit board. It looks kind of like a high school, like electronics class project. It's a little circuit board with little LEDs on it, and the LEDs are all different colors. You have like red, blue, green, and yellow. And each light has a switch. So when you turn on the switch connected to the yellow light turns on. When you turn on the switch connected to the blue light turns on, etc. And then you have a whole routine with it where you do different things. Like you unscrew the light bulbs and you switch them around, and the proper switches still correspond to the proper lights and all of these things. And when I first, and forgive me, I'm totally blanking out on the chap's name. I don't remember off the top of my head. But when he sent it to me, he said like, "Yeah, I'm just going to send this to you. And just all I ask is that you just do a review, tell me your honest opinion on it and all that stuff." And I got this thing in the mail and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't even know what, what's the intrigue about this? Like what makes people like it so much? Like it is cool looking, I guess, but whatever. I guess I'll have a look at it and we'll see. And then like, I fell in love with the thing. It's so cool. It's so fun to play with. Right. And so that's probably the most interesting thing that I've reviewed. One of the more popular ones is I did the Raven. That's making a big comeback. For those of you who don't know, the thing you wave your hands over an object and it instantly vanishes, and you can show both your hands empty. That one has recently blown up a couple of times. It blew up, I think, a year or two ago, like right at the peak of the pandemic, and then it's recently right now everyone's performing it again. So
there's a new one as well, isn't there? Raven Mini now as well, and there's a few add-ons that they're starting to do again. And I suppose it's kind of like that kind of anniversary type thing of like Blaine's Magic, and it always comes kind of back to new magicians again. But yeah, the Ravens are great utility.
I love the Raven.
Yeah. Recently, Black Cat Magic has been impressing me too. They're a fairly new company. They've been around for a couple years. Barry and Caleb, they're pretty much the two main content creators here. They put some good mentalism stuff, and I'm kind of dipping my toe into mentalism a little bit. Like I said, I'm writing a book test right now at the moment. Cool. Right, I love book tests. I worked with Josh Zanman on his trailers, and I did the tutorials for his book tests for a couple of his videos. And Caleb of Black Cat has put out a couple of book tests too that I really enjoy. I just find different things fascinating. There's things that get sent to me, and then there's things that I go out and I look for to do a review of, or I purchase myself. Either way, it's cool because I get to learn new things, and maybe things that I wouldn't have even thought were interesting, like that electronic board thing. And then I get it and I'm like, wow, this is really cool, so
I remember a stage version of something like that before with the bulbs. Remember there was a I can't remember who it was, but it was a bigger version. It was like a stage version where you have two people pairing off against each other. But it's cool. I didn't know there was a smaller kind of compact, because it's cool. It's a cool concept.
Like that. Yeah, it's tiny. It's like 4 inches across, something like that. It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I find as well, like there's some tricks that you see that like get amazing reviews, and you're like, I don't know, this doesn't suit me maybe or something, and then it's like there's other ones where like I love it and other people are like, it's awful, because there's some things that like I do all the time, and then I go onto like a Penguin or something and it's got like a 1-star or 2-star review, and I'm like, what? Like, this is like 1,000 timer. This is something I do like on a daily basis, and he's like, I close with it. What's wrong with this stuff? It's amazing how people can look at stuff so differently and like see it different uses and things for that.
No, people's attention spans are really low, as well. People don't want to kind of put the work in. Like we were talking about this a couple of times with different performers about like learning from books that you can interpret it a different way that than where if you see it on DVD, you're going to become kind of a Gregory Wilson doing a ring routine because you're seeing it firsthand. And especially as a young performer, you've no choice but to fall into that mindset. But I'm pretty sure, like, as an Irish pasty looking Irish lad trying to be Gregory Wilson is not a good idea. But that kind of that, I mean, learning from books is good for that. And I remember there recently I saw somebody on some post, I can't remember, Magicians Only or something, and they were saying all books nowadays should come with a tutorial DVD, and you're like, no, you're totally missing the point of what a book is, and I think I'd be pros and cons. Sometimes there'd be times where you'd be like, I wish there was a tutorial for that or something that, because you just can't maybe picture it or whatever. But then there's other times that I know you're reading an effect, it becomes a brand new effect because you're reading it and you're going to perform it way different than any other magician.
Yeah. If you look at the old school books, they don't even really give you a presentation. They give you an explanation of what the effect is, and then they teach you, like, you're just walking through how to learn it already, and you're just like, whoa, wait a minute, like, where's the performance? It'll be like the 4 aces switch, the reds and blacks switch places with each other, and that's the effect. And you're like, okay, so now you're learning it, and now you're like, okay, so you hold the cards here, you do a double lift at this moment, and then you turn this over and you place this down on the table. So it forces you to come up with a presentation for it.
Yeah, I think that's really good as well, because when you're looking at stuff as well from a book, one of my favorite things in the books that really give a breakdown of the performance is just to read that and never read the explanation and try and figure out my own method for it. But when you watch a video, it doesn't really work, because if it's a full performance, you probably see them pan the card or like see them go to the pocket, while in the description all that's cut out, so you really let your mind go wild, and then after 2 days of being like, this is fucking impossible, eventually going and looking at the method and being like, okay, that's how it's done, thank you, because that was driving me fucking into.
Yeah, if there was one soapbox that I could ever get on in my career, this is always the one that I do, and this is to try to be original as much as possible. That's where a lot of my creativity comes from. I'm not good at coming up with original ideas and original methods necessarily for things. I like to take things that other people have done and just flavor it my own way. So perfect example. The person I was talking about that got me into professional Magic with the card to pocket bit, who, by the way, I still have no idea who this person was. I can picture them in my mind, but I don't know who they actually are. I've never seen them since then, and I was young into Magic at that point, so I didn't think to like know who magicians were. I didn't even know there was such thing as a Magic community at that point. But I do the card to pocket routine the same way that he does it, but I do it with Pokemon cards, right? And instead of having the Pokemon card end up inside of my wallet at the end, or folded up inside of like a little biscuit tin or something, I have it go to the Pokeball.
Cool.
So
really cool.
The original idea for that was I wanted to do my card Magic routines at kids' birthday parties. But children don't really know like what an Ace of Clubs is, or like a Queen of Spades is, or whatever. So having them pick their favorite Pokemon character and doing Magic with that just made sense to me. Plus pocket monsters, I got something with the pocket thing there, right?
Yeah.
So that's all I did, and it ended up becoming the most requested piece of Magic that I perform on my act. Whenever I get booked to do something, oh, you're gonna bring the Pokemon stuff with you, right? And so since then, I've actually developed a whole Pokemon themed act. I have like a Pokemon Svengali deck, and I do a wild card thing. My friend Michael Blomicki came up with, where I turn all of the common cards into like the really rare cards, and all of these things. So all it takes is just a little bit of imagination to kind of repackage and retheme something that you're already doing. You don't even have to change the handling at all.
Color changes with Pokemon cards would be cool, because like you can talk about the Pokemon evolving. So like you have like an Eve and then it becomes a Vaporeon or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Do something really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. But for anyone that wants to know my process, right, it's super simple. You have column A and column B. In column A, write down a list of all of the effects that you love performing, that you perform well. You can go out, you can perform it, it's not going to fall apart, right? And then in column B, write down a list of all the things that you're passionate about that have nothing to do with Magic. So for me, growing up playing video games, watching anime, spending time with my family, my Irish heritage, all of these things I take into consideration, right? So I just came up with like a coins to glass routine that has like a whiskey theme to it. So I do the coins to the glass, and then I do cards to the glass, where the card goes like underneath the glass, and at the very end, the card ends up folded up inside of the ice cube that's inside the whiskey glass, right? So it's just all like a theme, and I produce a bottle of Jameson and I pour a drink at the end, you know? So like it's just, you don't even have to really change the handling. Just come up with something that, you know, that you are passionate about, and your audiences will see that passion that you have for it.
Definitely. Magic with a meaning is always going to be more impressive than just look at this cool trick or whatever it might be. You know, if it doesn't have patter or some kind of a hook, and if you don't care, they don't care. I mean, that's kind of a rule of thumb as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's something we have on the show, which is the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is all about performance, but maybe not in the right way. So we ask our guests to tell us a story about where a performance started off well, went a bit downhill, and maybe ended in disaster, hopefully with an hilarious outcome for the rest of us. Do you have any story that comes to mind when you think about that?
Yeah, the one time anyone asks me this question, it's usually one thing comes to mind, and that is when I first started booking shows professionally, I didn't have the sense to ask specific questions to make sure that I was the right person for the job, right? So sort of early on in my career, this is probably around 2013, 2014, something like that, I was booked to do an event at a banquet for a company like holiday end of the year celebration. And I asked some of the correct questions, right? Like, how many people are going to be there? There's going to be like 150 people there or whatever, right? Okay, cool. What kind of, you know, magic you're looking for? You're looking for walk around magic. You're looking for a formal close-up performance where I stand there and everyone watches one show at once. Like, what are you after? Like, oh, we want the stand-up show. Like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm asking sort of the right questions, right? And then I get there, and I'm not an illusionist. I don't do big, props or anything like that. Like my magic plays well for a group of 150 people. If that group of 150 people were not 100 feet away, sitting at, tables. So the way that they had the room set up was I was up on the stage. I call it a stage. It was like a 1 foot raised off the ground platform, right? And it was like, I don't know, maybe 20 tables. Each table had like 7 or 8 chairs at the table, and they were all spread out, but they were spread out so wide, like everything was like so far away from the stage. And so I arrive, and I meant to do a 45-minute stand-up show for these people. And I arrive, and immediately as soon as I walk in the room, I'm like, this isn't where the tables are going to be set up, is it? And they're like, yeah, no, this is the setup. And I was like, how many people are going to be here? And she's like, 150 or so. And I'm just like, this looks like it's going to be like 400 people in here. Like, yeah, this is like such a wide setup or whatever. So I ended up making a split-second decision, and I told the person, I was like, look, I don't want to disappoint you. I don't want to disappoint any of your clients or your employees or whatever. What I'm going to do is like 10 minutes on stage just to warm up the crowd. And then I'm going to stay for an extra hour, and I'm going to do walk around, because this ain't going to work. Right. They are not going to be able to, I'm going to be up here doing a sponge ball routine from 100 feet away. They ain't going to see anything that I'm doing. And I'm thinking in my head, what do I have just in my car that I can go grab that plays big? So the first thought, do some mentalism stuff. So I grabbed my book test stuff, right? Just doing things that, like invisible deck, things that don't require them to actually see anything, but they can experience the volunteers on stage being goofy or whatever. So I made it work. But the moral of the story is to make sure that you go into an event knowing what you're getting yourself into, because I was not prepared to perform for such a large audience. Since then, I've come up with effects that, had I been in that situation again, would be just fine. So I've kind of worked that into my act now. I have a proper stage set with small props. But at the time I didn't, and I was freaking out because I'm like, I'm about to do coins across over here. Like, how do I make coins across play big for such a wide room? But that's probably the worst gig I've had.
If you have a big disconnect as well with the audience, like you're in a banquet room and there's a dance floor or something like that, or if it's a corporate dinner or whatever, that disconnect, you're nearly better off to get off the stage and go onto the dance floor and do your show from there, just to be closer to the audience. Because sometimes it's fine for a band because you can choose to listen and or come up and dance when you want to, but you have to engage with it with a magician. I've been in that scenario myself, and you're just like, oh, what do I do? And that is a really good tip. Just perform something big, give yourself a good kind of introduction, and then hit the tables or whatever.
Yeah, it's good to save yourself of being like, I'll do 10 minutes and then I'm doing close up, rather than actually trying to like plow through and then like like dying.
I knew as soon as I walked in this wasn't going to work, and rather than put myself through that, because it had already started, I was 5 minutes into my set, and I hear the coming from the back of the room. They were not even watching me, and I don't blame them. They couldn't see anything. They could barely hear me. Mm-hmm. And so I did my 10-minute warm up. I grabbed the CEO of the company. I brought them up. I don't even remember what I did with them now. I did something with them, mind reading thing or something. Did like an invisible deck. Did a couple of other little things, and then I was like, okay, my friends, I'm gonna come around table to table now. I'm gonna show you some magic at your table so you can, play along and all these things. And I made it seem like, oh, that was the plan from the get, but really when I ended up having to stay longer because I ended up having to do all the tables rather than just doing the 45 minutes show and leaving, which was fine. But I've learned now to either A, have material that's going to be able to work in that situation, or B, I really need to vet the gig that I'm doing so that I know what I'm getting myself into ahead of time.
No, it's a good learning curve, because a lot of close-up magicians think they can just do stage magic, or they can just do a bit of close-up on stage, and it's not stage magic. It's completely different.
Yeah, I think it's good as well. As you get more experience, you perform that maybe like every banquet hall in your area. Eventually, you're like, oh, but that's not going to work in that venue. I need to like call them up
Yeah,
really quick
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's not good. It's like they book you, like, yeah, that's fine. Oh, it's in that town. Yeah, that's cool. And then like in this hotel, you're like, yeah, that doesn't work. Like I remember I was doing a wedding in a hotel before, doing an after dinner stand up show, and they started clearing the tables off the dance floor in the middle of my set, and I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I was like, my audience was right in front of me, and next thing they're all gone. I can even the bride and groom were like what the fuck? Like, I had the bride and groom up for a big special moment, and like their their guests are just like getting interrupted to walk away like at the climax of a confabulation, and you're just
Jesus.
like, what the fuck are you doing? So I'm like, oh, that place, yeah. Make sure you tell them not to clear the tables until after the show, or do it before the show. Either way, just not in the middle
Or
of the
even
show.
if there's a small bar in the room, in the conference room, ask them just to close the bar while you're on stage. It's just an easy thing to do. Just close the bar for the hour that I'm on, and they'll say, yeah, no problem, we'll open up right after. Just even that, just somebody going, because obviously they might have to go to the bathroom or whatever, and that's fine. And you can take the piss out of them on the way back and forth or whatever if they get up. But like, you know, I don't know, for a funny thing you can always do is if someone leaves to go to the bathroom, set something up so then when they all come back into the room, everyone shouts their name with them or something. It's always good fun. But something like that. But yeah, I mean, just the bar. It takes a lot of gigs or whatever just to learn these very simple things. Just ask the booker guy, just bar needs to be closed when I'm on stage. Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great things to know. And like I said, kind of going back to the beginning, that's why I started my YouTube channel, because I did talk about this experience. And I made a video almost immediately after I got back from my gig. I was like, yeah, this gig went really bad. This is why it went really bad. And this is what I learned from it. So the whole point was to just share my experiences. Who knows? I could be talking shit. I don't know. Maybe I'm making this all up. Who knows, right? But what works for me might not work for you. But I think having different opinions from different people, so you can kind of get it from all angles. And there's a lot of these little channels popping up now. Like Craig Petty is another one. He has this Magic TV channel. He does a lot of the same kind of content that I do, but from his point of view. And we kind of share the same audience in a way. Like a lot of people follow us both, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will get his perspective on something and my perspective on something, which maybe are not the same perspective. And then they kind of meet in the middle and they're like, yeah, I love what Craig said, but I also love what Michael said. So I'm going to try it this way, somewhere in the middle. You know, so having these different ideas coming from all different sides too. And that's why it's good to have a network of magician friends that you could bounce ideas off of, even if it means going on forums, maybe not the Magic Cafe, but going on forums or Facebook groups and things that you can ask questions and bounce ideas off is always helpful.
Definitely. That's really good advice. And for people who aren't subscribed to your channel yet, what is your YouTube channel? We can put the link down below as well, but if you want to say it.
Yeah, definitely. O'Brien Magic. That's it. Really easy. If you just type in Michael O'Brien Magician on YouTube, you'll find me as well.
That's great. And
Awesome.
we're just coming over the hour now, so I'd like to thank Michael for coming on. We really appreciate you taking the time this morning. I know it's really early over there, so thanks so much for getting up to talking with us.
Almost 6:45.
Yeah, perfect.
It's like
time for more Guinness.
It's like the only time that this is ever going to be appropriate, and it'd be the only time I'm ever going to say it. But top of the morning to you, Michael.
Oh my
How
goodness!
dare you?
We don't do that in Ireland, but I made an exception.
Yeah, I know that's a pet.
You're getting deported, like.
It's a bit of a pet
Fuck
peeve,
that!
isn't it?
I've got an Irish T-shirt. They can't deport me. This is literally a green card.
Yeah,
Is that AC/DC?
It's like it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a knockoff.
I love it.
It's a knockoff, yeah. Thanks, ACDC. You're going to sue us.
And definitely, we definitely recommend everybody to subscribe to Michael O'Brien's YouTube channel. It's really good, and we'll definitely have to have you back on because we've only really scratched the surface going through stuff. So maybe before next St. Patrick's Day, we'll have to get you back on again. And where else can people find you online if they want to reach out?
So if you want to contact me, if you have any direct questions for me, you're always welcome to shoot me an email. Come visit me on my website, o'brienmagic.com. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. No longer on TikTok. I just kind of got over TikTok. Too much drama with TikTok.
Shut
all of it is O'Brien Magic. I made it really easy for you guys. So you can just type in O'Brien Magic and you can find me on all of those. I hang out in the Theory 11 forums every so often. So if you want to come, I moderate over there sometimes. So if you want to come and hang out over there, that's a great forum if you're looking for an alternate place to go hang out. Or you just find me hanging around in the Facebook groups.
Absolutely. Definitely recommend that. And if everybody's watching this, you've made it this far, please hit the subscribe button to our channel. It really helps us out, and give the video a like as well. Get it so more people can see it. We really appreciate it. And we will be back again next week. We have another interview next week and one after that. We have loads of people lined up over the next few weeks. So definitely make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date, and follow us on Instagram for more details. And we'll be tagging people and doing all sorts of stuff there. So again, thanks everyone for watching. And thanks again, Michael, for coming on. We really appreciate it. And we'll see everyone again next week. So we'll talk to you all then.
See you. All the best. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Bye.
Thanks, Michael.
Happy
Bye-bye.
St. Patrick's Day. Bye.